Can we go to Syria, please, just
We
for the?
can.
I just want to know if there's anything more you can say about the chlorine that apparently was used that you talked about yesterday.
There's nothing new to update you on. We have been in touch with the OPCW. I should say our ambassador to the OPCW has been in touch. Beyond that, I know you asked a couple of questions yesterday, technical questions,
right.
Outside of broadly, what's happening with this specific process. And I wanted to just give you a few answers on that, if that's useful.
Yes.
So one is the Chemical Weapons Convention, which, as you all remember, was part of what Syria was required to join as part of the September agreement. It does prohibits the use of any toxic chemical, including chlorine, with the intent to kill or incapacitate people, regardless of whether it's specifically listed or not in the schedule of chemicals. So obviously, when people were asking yesterday about whether, if there was a use to be found, if there was a use found of chlorine, whether it would violate what it would violate, the use with intent to kill or intent to injure would violate the Chemical Weapons Convention, and obviously that was a part of what was agreed to in September. So that was one of the questions yesterday. I don't know if there were other technical ones, if not, but I can do my best to address them, or we can also continue to work through this over the coming days.
The technical one was, you said that yesterday that it wasn't on Schedule A or 1 or 2 or whatever it was A or B, but it is covered, correct?
Well,
was it covered in the agreement that was reached in Geneva?
Okay, so let me try to explain it again in a better way. Syria was required to join the Chemical Weapons Convention.
Right.
So the use with the intent is covered in by the Chemical Weapons Convention. So that they were required to join last September.
Right.
So it's covered in that degree.
Okay, so in other words, if it was proven that they had used chlorine with the intent to kill or injured, they would be in violation of the agreement that was reached in Geneva because it would violate the OPCW, which they were required to join because of that agreement.
That is a long extension, yes. And to be more broad about it, not just chlorine, I know, again, we're of course looking into this, but the use of any toxic chemical with the intent to cause death or harm is a clear violation of the convention.
But so, in other words, but you haven't yet determined whether or not it was chlorine and whether or not if it was, who used it. Is that correct?
And as you know, but it's worth repeating, there are several possible mechanisms for investigating a possible violation. The OPCW Technical Secretariat's international group of experts on CW will almost certainly be involved in that. Point being, it wouldn't be the United States, as you all know, but it's worth repeating, going in and investigating. There would be an international mechanism. There's a range of ways that could take place.
At the moment, I'm less interested in, although others might be, in how exactly it will be determined whether it was chlorine and who used it. But I'm a little bit confused if there is even the suspicion or there are indications that chlorine was used and that the regime was behind the use of it, how it is that people are still going around saying that the agreement reached with the Russians back in Geneva is worth anything. If it violates it, not just in the spirit, but also in the letter of the agreement, which required them to join the OPCW, how can people, the Secretary included this morning, say that this is a success and it's something that you're working well with the Russians on?
Well, Matt, and just a brief update on that. The percentage of declared chemicals removed is now at 86%. As you know, there are different categories of chemicals. Right. The point that I was making is that obviously any use of any toxic material with the intent to injure or kill is something we'd be concerned about. We're not at the point of we're obviously in touch with the OPCW, we're in touch with our international partners. I don't have any new updates on that.
Were they required to declare chlorine stocks of chlorine gas? Because, I mean, if 86% of what appears not to include any, or it doesn't include chlorine, and if they're going to get I don't understand.
Well, again, so let me just, on the Chemical Weapons Convention, just to be clear here, the schedule of chemicals are intended to facilitate its declaration and inspection regime, are not intended to be an exhaustive list of all toxic chemicals. So chlorine, let me finish my answer. Chlorine, as you all know, is a globally produced industrial chemical with many peaceful uses. Obviously, the use of chlorine with the intent is a different category.